Good morning and thank you for joining. Today we're going to be looking at understanding your audience with user intent to sort of better understand the reasons behind search and why people look for what they do. So I thought I'd start with just a little bit about me. My name is Zak Averre, and I'm a senior content account manager at Annika Digital. I've been in content marketing for just around 10 years now, and I had a brief stint teaching English abroad in between. Um, I started at Saatchi & Saatchi in Cape Town, and before moving to the UK in 2017. And I've been Annika for just shy of about 2 years now, working for a wide range of sectors, sort of e-commerce, the medical sector, logistics, anything and everything really. That's a little bit about me. If you're not familiar with Annika, we're an award-winning digital agency. I'm sure most of you know about Annika by now, based in Leicester. And the approach is very much data-driven. That's what sort of come to define us, I think, in a big way, which this presentation might go a little bit against that. So sorry, Anne. With that, though, just want you to know that as a multi-service provider, we combine the paid with the organic design and PR to sort of meet the needs of clients. And this brings about some really interesting projects where we find working with different sort of departments and that sort of thing. This sort of agile approach has allowed us to win some amazing clients and work on some really interesting projects. So I've been really privileged to work on some big names and to help, with some really, really interesting projects. That's just a little bit about Annika. But let's get to it, shall we? So understanding your audience with user intent. So as we understand it, SEO is a numbers game, or is it? Sorry, Brad, I see you in the chat there. It's always been an interesting argument with SEO, being that it's a fine balancing act between appeasing the search engine and appeasing the user. On one side, you have the need, to make sure that web crawlers can index pages, find the right key phrases in the right places, and score your page highly. While on the other side, you want to answer someone's question and do it in a natural way that sounds like normal conversation. So to do this, we often look at SEO to start, and we look at organic rankings, search volumes, the traffic that you're getting from certain key phrases, and how well they convert. But how do we make sure that we take this information and combine it with user intent to ensure that we're answering someone's question while performing well on SEO? The answer is user intent. It comes into play here in understanding the motivation behind a search. So we can sort of think a bit from an organic perspective. You need to look at how SERP has developed. If you think about over the past 10 years, for example, or past 15 years, even the way that the Google interface has changed. In the early days, all you had to do was stuff a bunch of key phrases into a blog or a page, and it would rank highly. But Google's become a lot smarter, a lot more intelligent. So now they've started ranking things differently and providing information on the search result pages themselves. I mean, just look at that example there. You can sort of see how the FAQs have been pulled out into the SERP itself. On the right-hand side, you've got a little breakdown of exactly what that topic means. The information that people are looking for and the intent behind it is put front and center. So understanding what people want and how to provide that information has become, really, really key to providing a better experience. So we can also look at other things, such as the way that maps have been integrated, FAQs, image searches, things of that nature. And as such, it's become necessary to try and define motivations and ascribe them to different types of content. Traditionally, you've sort of had in the past informational, navigational, and transactional. I myself subscribe to the fact that commercial as a fourth one is a really interesting sort of bridging between some of these. We'll start going through those. So informational intent. Informational intent is probably the one that we're most familiar with. It's one of the most basic requests. The intent is just to find out more. It's looking for information. Whether it's on a brand or a topic, a product, the intent is to learn to garner information, and to try and make a more informed decision. As such, this intent is perfect for projects such as brand discovery, providing a place where users can learn about who you are, and also to build trust. To provide content that explains a topic so that they can go, oh, if I need more information, I can always come back to them. However, this intent is also the least likely to convert, as it's quite general. So you're often likely to get very, very general audiences who are just looking for very beginner information potentially, or someone not necessarily ready to make a sale, maybe months in advance, but just trying to get an idea of a topic. As such, it can be quite broad, and without careful consideration of the key phrases that you include in a page that's informational based, it can lead to bad leads, or people finding a page that they don't need and bouncing away. So it is quite an important page to get right, especially at sort of that initial phase of getting someone's interest. You can sort of see these if you look at landing pages, about us, FAQs, anything on a blog page, really, sort of provide information on industry news, on any of sort of the latest trends in your industry, on things you're doing yourself. And then outside of that, thought leadership pieces, things such as white papers, reports, anything with loads of interesting stats that people might be interested to learn. This is all valuable information and can help you really rank really highly. The next type we have navigational intent. So navigational intent is looking for navigation, it's looking for direction. This can be both physically and in the digital world. So these key phrases are often directed by a need or by a brand. So they can often be quite broad, looking for coffee near me, Costa Coffee, someone searching on their phone looking for, a really quick search. Or alternatively, someone looking for a page related to a particular service, such as a refund page. They have to be quite specific, but they do have an intent at the heart of them that isn't necessarily conversion, but might lead to conversion. And tailoring your content to this intent can often shorten the distance between discovery and conversion. So that's why it sort of has its own category. It sort of reduces the chance. It can also reduce the chance of customers becoming disgruntled, particularly if they're looking for a contact number or some sort of assistance with regards to any issues. So providing this immediacy with this page by shortening that journey, you can often make it a lot easier, make it easier for people who are time poor to find the information that they need. This little example here, you can sort of see just looking for coffee near me or something like that. You can find Starbucks. You can see Google has already incorporated it. They provided maps. So you can think of it as a mobile user walking around looking for somewhere to grab a cup of coffee. You enter it, you open your maps, you do it automatically without thinking. But it's something that we just take for granted, and how it's changed and become more natural as it's become a more important part of our lives. This is sort of the bread and butter, transactional intent. These are the pages that convert. These are the pages where you get your sales. It's sort of they're often where users show explicit intent and often include a verb or an action related to conversion. They're usually looking for purchases, free trials, looking at price searches, for example, which sometimes blends into others. And even, something as vague as where to watch a football on Saturday. That's something that can lead to a conversion. So you still have instances of questions, but they have a direct transactional nature to them. They're looking for a decision to make, and they're looking for you to provide that information to them up top. However, because of the nature of this intent and because everyone wants ownership of these sorts of terms, it can be highly, highly competitive because they're perfect for conversion. You already found that person at the bottom of the funnel. So these ones are ones where you want to really hone in on them and be really specific with where you use your transactional intent. You want to look at specific products and service pages. You want to look at, if you're an e-commerce, your product pages. You want to look at deals or promotional pages. So even if you're sort of a B2B business that doesn't necessarily have a product, so to speak, if you have a promotion on, you want to create a standalone page, you can do that and make sure that it's really transactional in nature. And in doing so, try and drive that conversion. We then have commercial intent. This one, last but not least, is something I find really valuable, and it's kind of like a bridging page I find between an information and transactional sort of intent. These search terms are often optimized for audiences who are close to converting but require a little bit more information. So if you think of things like blogs or guides and reviews or comparisons, so for example, you can see their iPhone versus Samsung. Which one do I want? Anyone searching that is already obviously in the process of buying a new phone. They just want to know which one they should choose, which is why I think this commercial intent is quite valuable as sort of bridging the gap, because it's not quite informational. It's not as, sort of just thought leadership, and it's not as hard hitting as transactional. It's still providing that key information, but at the end of it, you can still then provide, a call to action to then convert. So I think that these, they extend, reviews, guides, unboxings. There's a litany of way that these sort of things can come about with the commercial intent. So those are the 4 different types that I'm going to look at today in terms of this exercise to help you understand the intent behind a search. I think it's really valuable to be able to categorize it as such, because it makes it easier to look at a key phrase or look at a page and think about, okay, if I'm a user, what am I coming to this page for? Am I here for information? Am I for direction? Am I here to find out maybe a little bit more and maybe make a sale? Or am I here to just buy? What am I looking for from this? So with these intents in mind, I want to look at sort of the audience and how you can match your audience with these intents. So we're going to go very classic with this. Fundamentally, we're going to map it to the marketing funnel. This is something I think nearly everyone is aware of. To use a marketing funnel is, it works across both real world and digital marketing contexts. So being able to just sort of say whether it's awareness, interest, consideration, or action, I think makes it a lot easier to map these intents. So everyone, as I'm sure most of us know, your users will always be at different parts of the funnel, depending on the page type that you have. So it's important to ensure that your website has a variation of pages to match all of these. You want to have enough content that has awareness to bring awareness to your brand. You want to have enough information to provide interest in your products or services. You want to have, the product pages that then lead to consideration and action, and obviously the call to actions themselves that lead to transactions. So I think it's really valuable to keep this in mind whenever you're thinking of how to best place these intents. So a good way to think of it is just to ask yourself some questions too. Are they aware of your brand? Are they interested in a product? Are they ready to consider a purchase? Are they ready to take an action? Asking yourself these questions can be really, really valuable at just putting yourself in their shoes. Because I think often on day to day, we think of, all right, we need to create this, we need to do this, we need to do that. But you don't often take the time to think of what do they need. So it's all about that sort of human experience. So we're going to look at matching the funnel to your audience. I would say with this, it's easier to take a list of the key phrases and look at the framework and place them in groups. So I've just got a few examples here. So for awareness, you want to look at, in my mind, navigational, informational key phrases. I don't think you're ever going to have 100% spread of one or the other. It might fall into one or two camps. You might have to make a decision whether it's informational, navigational. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of language, and the way we communicate is that it's all down to inference and the way we understand one another. So there's always going to be a level at which you're going to have to make a decision. So from that, when it comes to the awareness side, you want to look at providing information or providing direction. Sort of looking for an Annika blog, you're looking for a Boots pharmacy, you're looking for sort of any kind of information as to what is SEO, that sort of thing. It starts really broad and goes down to navigating directly to some more information or a location. So I think that awareness is really, really positive and really useful, at least at the top end for getting a general audience before refining it down. We then have the consideration phase, which is that middle phase of the funnel. And that you sort of look at the informational as with the commercial stuff and the commercial key phrases themselves. So we have, again, comparisons, PPC versus SEO. Which one should I use? You have reviews, which product is better. You have how to implement XYZ. These are all sorts of things that can be under consideration and can help define whether someone's going to look for a service, do it themselves, look for an alternative. These are all considerations that require information and potentially a little bit of upsell, a little bit of cross-sell, a little bit of leading them down the funnel. And then finally, you have your purchase and conversion, which is where your transactional comes in. Yeah. This again also involves some kind of navigation, often immediacy. So pizza restaurant near me is a very much conversion-based sort of key phrase in my mind. You could argue it's under consideration, but I would argue if I'm desperate enough to say I want a pizza restaurant right near me, I'd say that's conversion. Sign up, free trial, purchases, buy now, anything that has a direct, like I say, a sort of explicit purchasing direction, that's where you sort of want to focus on those key phrases by and large. You often want to mix and match too to make sure that you keep these all in mind. So now that we understand that, we can look at how we can match these key phrases to the funnel. Look for obvious markers of intent first. So the most basic thing is just to look at the phrase. Does it have question words? If it's got a preposition or a question, it can often be informational in request. It's someone asking a natural question. How do I X, or where do I X? These sort of things are really important. So look for any kind of question words because those will generally be navigational informational requests, and they can often define the intent behind a search. Is it brand related? If it's brand related, someone will probably already know of your brand, of the service, or of the industry itself, and are looking for more information. So as such, they're probably not in that awareness, but in the consideration sort of level. Are they asking for directions, a point of sale, or more information? Is it for directions? It's navigational. Is it a point of sale? They're looking for conversion. Is it for more information? It's informational. They're really basic questions, but it's important to look at them each and then consider how that key phrase fits in and which group it fits into and how it maps onto the funnel. And also, this is just as a background, but if you've done any persona audience work to provide more context, do you know the pain points? Do you know what they're looking for? This can all sort of help you direct the sort of key phrases that you want. Once you've done this, it's really valuable to sort of think of, you can even sort of bunch them around a marketing funnel itself, create a little graph and sort of say, these key phrases are mapped around this area, around that area. And you can say the majority are around awareness. So we should create something around awareness or something along those lines. It's sort of matching it to the funnel so that then you can tailor the content to meet those needs. What we want to do next is you then want to take it a step further. You've got your key phrases, you have a general understanding of the intent behind the search, but now you want to see how others are doing it. So the best thing to do is just to plug them into Google and just hit enter. You want to look at the sort of the top results. It's free. This is one of the best things to do is always just use Google itself and look at what they're doing. You want to look at sort of the top and sort of look at how they're doing. What are they? How are they structured? What type of information do they provide? What approach has the writer taken? Are there any call to actions? How immediate are those call to actions? What is their tone of voice? What level or style of language is used? One I find really interesting and one I think that people often overlook is the reading level of their customers. According, if you see a lot of tools such as Grammarly and such, and certain tools on the back end of sort of in your website, they'll often give you a reading rating, and some of these are based on different specific scores. The one that's really popular is the Fleisch-Kincaid method, which sort of does a really, really complex sum to discover the reading level of a user. And their findings have discovered that the majority of internet users, especially when it comes to English, read at a 9th grade level according to the American system. So if you imagine like an early high school level. So this means, depending on your audience, you may need to simplify your language to appeal to a more general audience, or if you're more specialized and want to appear more professional, you might want to incorporate more formal language. So it's all about looking at how someone else is doing it, matching the tone, seeing the structure, seeing the information provided, and taking note of that for your own content, because that's the expectation of the reader. You also want to look at what are they not doing. You want to look at where the areas you want to take a look at it with a critical eye. You want to look at how can we improve that. You want to look at, is it is there an opportunity for more conversion oriented approach? Is the information very wordy? Is there a way we can turn this maybe into a flow chart or a video or some other rich media, which would be more beneficial and probably rank better because of being rich media? These are the questions you want to ask when you're trying to match the content to the funnel itself. And also along with this, you also want to just put in key phrases to see what the drop down suggests. Even before you've hit enter, once you put the key phrase in, you can generally tell the intent from the top suggestions that Google tries to autofill with. So with all this in mind, you can then map out your key phrases and see where they cluster. If you find your intent is largely around awareness, consider creating a long format blog, a list, or a guide. You can provide plenty of information and use an angle to provide an insight without being too pushy. You can also incorporate longer tail key phrases with lower search volumes that don't necessarily convert, but will bring in a very, very motivated audience who are looking at a very specific topic. For interest or consideration, you can create reviews, lists, or pages with stronger call to actions. Look to sort of hammer down on your key USPs or information, and provide a way to further the journey with a suggestion. Maybe if you've enjoyed reading this and you need a hand finding X, take a look at this. You can provide products or services in that lead the journey on further. So the intent behind the consideration can then be further towards conversion. And then finally, for conversion, create pages that are sales focused. Using banners, special offers, call to actions high up on a page, product listings. This is where you can really just focus on the conversion itself. You've done all the hard work with the information, the interest, and the consideration in your blogs and other pages. When it gets to the actual point of sale, you want to make sure that you get it over the line. So, sorry, got ahead of myself there. So with those in mind, you can sort of see how you can bring it together. You've taken your key phrases, you've looked at their intent, you've looked at the marketing funnel, you've bunched them around there, you've noticed, I need to create an awareness piece. You've looked at how other people are doing it, you looked at how you can improve it, and then you've considered how you can bring it all together into a blog, a guide, or a list. Similarly, if you're looking at a consideration page, you've Googled it, you found lots of people asking questions about this product versus another product, but there's not much information on it, or the product or the pages that do show up don't necessarily provide a call to action at the bottom. You can say, we can provide a better version of this that leads to a conversion. There's many ways this can go about. It's all just about sort of thinking about the user's journey and how you can improve it by understanding their intent behind the search phrase. To this end, there are several ways and tools that you can use to help you understand this intent, right? Personally, I think we're all capable of this research without tools specifically, because they do just require thinking from the user perspective. And I think all of us understand people on a basic level. So I think being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes can help you really understand that without the need for fancy tools. But that being said, there are some things you can use to help automate or speed up the process and provide you, maybe if you hit a blank wall and you're not sure, just to give you an idea of what to look for. So with that in mind, there are some free tools to look at. In terms of free tools, there's several to choose from. There's, like I said, a good old-fashioned Google search is great. You can see the lie of the land. You can see the top pages. You can see the autofills. You can sort of see even just the meta information and the stuff that Google suggests in terms of the snippets at the top. But beyond that, there's obviously things like Answer the Public. I think Answer the Public has been suggested at every single sort of content-based presentation I've ever been to. And I think it's been a tool that's been around forever. Unfortunately, it's no longer as free as it once was. It is limited to, I think, 3 searches per day for a search term or something along those lines. So you're somewhat limited, but it is still free. And they do paywall some of the information, but it is there. It is really good for informational ideas and also offers examples with prepositions and question words, so you can get an idea of the type of questions being asked. This is one. The next one is one I just found sort of Googling around after Answer the Public locked me out after too many searches. Was a question database. This one again sort of refines broad key phrase into relevant questions and informational searches. And then finally, Moz offers a free keyword explorer that's free with sign up. This is obviously a bit more in depth, but requires a bit more investment. You also have some paid tools you can turn to. There's obviously SEMrush, I believe, is the only sort of major provider that includes search intent as part of their project. And then obviously Answer the Public has also their paid service, which makes it unlimited and provides a lot more information. I think that again, sort of you can just look at what you want to do and use the free tools first. But if you're working on a scale where it's required, you can probably look at paid tools. And then finally, I would be remiss to not mention AI. And this is the reason I brought it up in the polls, was because I think it's a very pertinent topic, especially to the world of content, in which we see lots and lots of things automated. As it became the sort of the next step in development, it's one that's certainly going to affect marketing as a whole and content in particular. You need only look at how Google has used updates over the past several years. The BERT update incorporated prepositions and other terms to better understand context. This was to mimic sort of natural language processing. It makes it easier for robots to understand human communication and makes it more intuitive. It makes it more user-friendly, and again, sort of focuses on the user-first approach. This has also had a knock-on effect in improving voice search, making it more intuitive, and allowing for more nuanced key phrase research that better mimics human expression. If you think back in the old days, you just had to put a really broad key phrase, but now you're able to put in a really long search term with loads of sort of letters and words and things that a robot wouldn't understand, but it understands from the context what you're looking for. And even as recently as last August, Google introduced a major update in the helpful content update. And in no uncertain terms, they said that content should prioritize being useful and informative. It should appeal to the user first and search engine second. That's not, again, to say that, like I said, it's a fine balancing act, but you need to try and find that balance, and that's really important. And this is where I think AI can learn. It's rich soil for AI to learn from and understand meaning. If Google and other search engines already have these mechanisms in place, AI tools can use these NLPs to learn how to phrase and how to communicate and provide a more nuanced, natural feedback. So if you have the means, you can invest in AI tools to create content frameworks, for example, that can be put in a prompt to sort of say, give me an idea of the top 10 issues around people's search concerns or something along those lines, find the most useful questions to answer. You can even use it to build calendars, look for, give me 10 topics on XYZ. You can obviously provide a lot more detail or be as vague as you like. The more detail you provide, the richer and better the results usually are. But this, for me, leads on to a very interesting question, and one I'm interested to get your point of view on, which is, what will the future of search intent look like? This is probably the part of the presentation I'm most excited by, because it's that blue sky thinking of what the potential will be. And it really takes me back to my studies. So before marketing, I studied English literature, and English literature, within it, there's an area of study called narratology. So essentially, that is just the study of how we tell stories and how that's changed over time. It's gone through waves of development. There was structuralism, modernism, postmodernism, and they just tried to look at how we interpret the world around us and how, on a macro level, that has changed and changed the way we do things and infer things. And one of the most important relationships that the school argues about is the relationship between the reader and the writer. And this is something I'm fascinated by, because it comes down to the very crux of communication, which is, how do I understand you? Which on its surface seems like a very simple sort of conversion. It's, an A to B, but it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think one of the tools I find most useful in understanding this relationship is Chapman's communication diagram. So I've just put a little line there. You can sort of see it starts with the real author, implied author, narrator, implied reader, and real reader. So it's sort of, instead of a 2-step process, it's a 5-step process. So I'll try and explain it as best I can. We have, for example, the real author, me as a person, Zak. We have then the implied author, which is who you, while reading a piece, think I am. You don't know me, but you think the person, right? You think about who the person is writing that and the information, their experience, the thing that they know. In the terms of digital marketing, the narrator is the focalizer, and it sort of focuses how we look at the piece. And that is the website or the brand that is bringing you this information. We then have the implied reader, who I believe I am writing for. Who is the audience I am writing for, right? And then you have the real reader, who is you at the other end actually reading the piece. So sorry if it confuses at all, but I think that's the purpose of it, is to try and show that communication isn't necessarily a two-way street. It's a kaleidoscopic type of thing where there's inference at every single step of the journey. And our job is to try and make that as seamless as possible to convey our message. So in a perfect world, we would hope to see AI bridge this gap as it learns more about how we speak and how we communicate. Hopefully, AI tools could find a way to help me understand what my reader is looking for, and alternatively, help readers find the information they need through better optimized content and more nuanced content and content that's more specialized to them. I think only time will tell with the advent of AI, and it's difficult sort of to say how this relationship will change. Will trust in content drop with assumptions? So, for example, if more content is automated, will people become mistrusting of it and thinking that a robot's written and not a person? Or will the use of AI make it easier for content people to manage more content en masse and provide even more nuanced content so that you get a better experience? Only time will tell, really. I like to think of it, especially in content, as AI would help us better understand our audience, as we're able to sort of pass more information, and sort of come up with better answers. I think it's a little known fact, obviously, that there's so much information out there. We're never going to learn all of it. As a single person, it's impossible for me to know everything on the internet, So I like to think of it as a theorem. So if you think of, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the infinite monkey theorem. So for those not familiar, it's a theory that if you had an infinite amount of time and infinite monkeys with typewriters, eventually one of them would just smash away at the keys and eventually come up with the complete works of Shakespeare. It's just a case of when, not if. As a content marketer, I see this happening with AI. We've essentially created a way to create the infinite monkeys with the infinite typewriters. All we need to do is make the best use of it. So I see content marketing changing to a much more editorial and guiding role, where it's better to understand user intent, to understand the reader and what they need, and to make sure and ensure that we find the Shakespeare amongst the dross, that we bring the content that people need and want to their experience. So that's why I think it's really valuable to think about how AI is going to play a role in this development as we move forward. And we think about how AI understands human interaction and how it's going to learn from it. I think it's probably going to take some time, admittedly. Uptake is obviously dependent on so many factors. But I think it's important to keep an eye on it and to keep it in mind when you think of how to implement these tools in your content, and especially when it comes to ideation, content calendar creation, that sort of thing, sort of the top level beginnings of a project. So just to wrap it up, apologies if I got a bit sort of blue skies and out there and a bit Black Mirror with some of it at the end, but I think there's some takeaways that you can use right now. It's sort of now more than ever really, really important to understand who your users are to rank well. Google is by no means shied away from the fact that it's a user-oriented approach. So by allowing time for intent research, you can ensure that you find more nuanced answers, more key phrase opportunities, unique copy that employs natural language patterns, targeted content that speaks to needs, and ultimately drives more conversions. So to do this, I think it's best to take the time to understand your audience, the nature of the requests, and how you can position your content to best answer their needs. Whether this is through AI, free tools, or just having a chat with your team in the office, it's really, really useful, I think, to take this intent, figure it out, map it to a marketing funnel, and create the content that you need around it. But yes, thank you. That's all. Those are all my slides. Thank you for your time. Apologies if I rushed through some of that, but I hope it's been useful for you.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Zak. There have been a couple of questions coming in.
Okay.
So someone said, how do you work in using the analysis with regarding keywords and the types of pages that are coming in? How do you work with that off the back of what you've said?
So, I mean, the best thing to do is to use the SEO to lead with the SEO first. So, first thing what you would like to do is take off your list of key phrases. You obviously want to organize them by the volume, by your rankings. You want to look at the ones that are going to give you the biggest effect from an SEO side first. Then once you've got those, you're going to want to group them according to the intent. So that's where you start looking at the funnel, and you start looking at the phrases as I sort of mentioned. Because if you're just looking at, I've done it before, where you've got a list of 100 key phrases and you're looking at them, you're like, what am I looking at? There's just phrases after phrase after phrase after phrase, and it doesn't provide much direction. And especially when it comes to writing, it can be quite tricky then to try and fit in a whole bunch of key phrases without knowing what the end goal is. So it just helps define those goalposts to make it easier to decide which key phrases to keep, because again, you can't keep all of them, and which ones to focus on and make primary, which ones to make secondary, that sort of thing.
And what about how Google interprets keywords? For example, I think what someone's asking here is about, if someone's searching for something that gives Google the impression that there's the intent of the user to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you go about, thinking about user intent for that purpose?
How to direct them through Google itself? Sorry, I'm just...
I think what they're trying to get at is, I think they're kind of partly giving you the answer, but I think it's about being more really intuitive, like your slide about the intent. And because people also ask questions, don't they, in search? So it's kind of what does the search query, what does that mean when you write the content, and that how it translates. And I think what you kind of said earlier was looking for trends and patterns and collectively have a concept of what people are trying to do. And it's kind of being interpretive, isn't it, to follow that journey, really?
Yeah. It all comes down to the motivation. It's a bit, it's tricky because obviously Google, what they do is it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. We react a lot and we plan a lot, but there's often changes in algorithms where we have to test and see how things go. So I think when it comes to that, you've got to use best practice, and just try and match your intent, and hopefully Google will then rank you according to that. So the more able you are to make sure that it's content led and user focused, the more likely you are to rank, as long as you've got the right key phrases. So again, it comes back to that balancing act of getting the right key phrases, but then implementing them in the correct way to ensure that Google puts you on the right page or the right search, if that makes sense. So you don't have a conversion on an informational request, for example.
Yeah, that's spot on. We did have a bit of a laugh, when you spoke about ninth grade. So I translated it into the UK terms, like it's age 14 to 15. But actually, that made me smile, because when I started out in online marketing, it was kind of, and I don't know if it's some of the things that I was marketing, if I'm honest, but it was always keeping in mind the mind of an 11 to 12-year-old, in reading terms, and how you kind of make it really crisp language, and then with call to actions woven in. So yeah, that did make me smile though.
It is, and it's it's not something I mentioned, but it's definitely worth noting is it's worth considering when you're writing stuff to think of things. I'm a bit of a language nerd, so I love the idea of idioms and metaphors and things like that. But you can't take those things for granted, because a lot of the time a user might not be familiar with that term if it's not their native language or something like that. So these are all things you need to look at and be aware of when you're writing your content. And just keep in mind, like I said, that 9th grade level, just always try and think, what is the simplest way I can convey this information? It used to be some of the best advice. I believe it was Hemingway. He said to kill your darlings. And he basically said, whenever you were writing, to go back to your writing, and any sentence that sounded super flowery or was really long and descriptive, he said, get rid of it. It's pointless. It's not useful. And that's his approach, was to make sure that you had short, punchier sentences that conveyed the message, because people don't necessarily have time to read that. And often those sentences don't provide information. They're more there just to stroke your ego. So the ones that are best are the ones that convey the message clearly and concisely, especially in digital context.
Okay, you're getting really positive feedback. I'm just posting the review call to action. So Google reviews are fantastic and really help with ranking, especially in local SEO. So we'd really love any reviews you can, muster up, especially because you've written them in the chat already. Some of the feedback saying interesting, very thought-provoking. You've inspired me. My brain is working at full steam now. I feel a little bit like that this morning.
Thank you.
I love it, Zach. It's like being back at university. It was really academic in parts as well. I really liked it.
Yes,
Brad, has come in. He's our big SEO strategist, and he said, if you notice that most results for a phrase are e-commerce product pages, there's a good chance that Google thinks it is a transactional intent. So you would struggle to rank a blog post instead of a product page for that phrase. Thanks for that clarification, Brad. I think that's really part of the answer from the question that was being asked. Michael saying, really enjoyed it. Zach is a little bit competitive. I know he's disguised it today, but he'd like a few reviews if you wouldn't mind.
It's my debut. It's my debut, guys. It'll be really
well,
good.
Yeah, it is his debut, and on Tuesday we will be going over the feedback at the staff meeting. No pressure, everybody. And then Ainsley's saying, just used OpenAI GPT to give me some new ideas for keywords for my business. And it's really helpful to think differently and open up ideas. And also did it to find ideas for pain points. And that's a lot of what Zach's covered today on how to use products. So, yeah. And then Rich said, new to the world of SEO, really clear and engaging. So, also just want to add in, let me have a look. We do have podcasts now. So I don't know how many of you go to the gym or go on walks. I know I'm trying to keep up my 10,000 steps a day. And yesterday I forgot to turn my Fitbit on. So yeah, got one day out. I don't want to talk about it. But it's brilliant to listen to Spotify when you're, doing a bit of exercise or you're in the kitchen cooking, whatever. So everything that we do for the webinars, we're going further and doing deeper dives and lots more questioning. Anne is hosting, and I think Rachel's going to be helping out moving forward. So just keep an eye on that. I've put that up there. But yeah, I can't see any more questions coming in. Just lots of thank yous. Yeah, it was a good job. Really great. And yeah, lots of thank yous. Thanks, Pauline, Georgia. Appreciate it. Trying to think if there's anything else to put in there. I think we're all right from call to action perspective, actually. So yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for your time. Much appreciated. Especially so early on a Friday morning. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, and I think it's great to see. There was Katie last week, and she was new to doing the webinars, and now Zach this week. So yeah, it was a really good session. If you could put that on the reviews, we would love you forever.
Yes, please.
Gurpreet sent me a message saying that next week's webinar, it's with our paid media director, Pete Keyworth. And obviously it's going to be all around paid media, PPC. So keep an eye out for that. We're just firming up the title. Oh, thank you. Yes. James said, will there be a replay emailed around? So I'll get that published. I did it really quickly last week. So after this ends, basically, I just have a few admin bits to do, and it's always usually live by about 12:30. I know from my perspective, there were certain elements of today, even for me, I've been in marketing 20 years and, you know, different facets of my role. I've worked across all, but, you know, subject areas and paradigms really. But there was a couple of things today I wanted to pause and think really, really take in about. So you can go back over it.
Yeah.
The handouts have been shared as well, and they're pinned to the top of the chat.
Yeah, please do go take away and feel free to.
There's a lot of people asking for the recording today.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a lot more than normal. I think that's because you've got all our cogs turning on a Friday morning, Zak, to be honest. So, yeah. Okay. Well, you know, if you have any questions, I'll just put my email address in there as well. You never know. But it's been great to have you all here. I've really enjoyed it. You have got me thinking a lot as well about a couple of bits that I'm going to present on Tuesday. So, Zak, yeah, a national treasure today.
I'm glad.
And made us think about different educational systems as well.
Yeah, it gets you thinking, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I did have to Google on my phone 9th grade, and I've had a goddaughter who grew up in America. It's a bit bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it so fascinating. I find communication language really fascinating. So it's just that's why I enjoy the content marketing as a whole, because I think it's such an interesting way to look at how we communicate with one another. So I think it's really.
I really agree. I kind of love like the philosophy of life as well, and how people like what their frame of reference is, and you know, that kind of side of things. So yeah, you never know. We might do a joint webinar down the line. I think you've got me thinking about a couple of bits, so that's all good. Lots of thank yous. If you can leave a review,
yes, please. Thank you
forever. So yeah, happy Friday. I think that's it. I can't see any more questions coming in. And thanks, Brad, for just that clarification around transactional intent. That really helped as well. Okay, so we'll see you next week. It's Pete Keyworth talking about paid media PPC. You'll get the communications coming out from like Monday onwards. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
all
guys.
right. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. I was going to say week then. Yeah, I think it's because I'm thinking about Monday, Tuesday already. Yeah, I need to get more of a life, I think. Okay, take care. Bye.